Hello everyone and welcome to this new video of Deep in Politics. So today we will be studying and analyzing together the 2020 presidential election result of the state of Iowa. So Iowa is a small state in the United States of America that President Trump was able to win in both the 2016 and the 2020 election by quite a big margin. Before going into details and before studying the numbers of this state, let's see a little bit the voting history of this state. So as you see here, since the 1992, this state was always won by the Democrat until 2016, where President Trump was able to flip the state and to win it for the Republican by a very big margin, by around 10 points. He was also able to win it in the 2020 election by around 9 points. So he was able to keep his electoral base strong in this state. So as you see here, President Trump was able to win the state in 2016 by a margin of around 10 points, a little bit less than 10 points, whereas in the 2020 election, he was able to win it by a margin of 8.2%. And what is very striking, it's that it was the Democrats who were able to win the state previously by big margin. As you see here, they were able to win it in 2012 in 2012 by 6 points, and then by 10 points in 2008. So there was a big change in Iowa since the 2016 election, as there was a very big shift in favor of the Republican in this state. And of course, the main reason is that President Trump was able to attract a big number of rural voters in the state of Iowa. So just let's compare a little bit the result between the 2016 election and the 2020 election. So as you see here, the Republicans were able to gain 2.1% in the general electoral college compared to the 2016 result, as their result went up from 51.1% to 53.2%, whereas the Democrats were able to gain 3.3% in the general vote, and their result went up from 41.7% to 45%. And so in general, there was a shift in the state of Iowa of 1.2% in favor of the Democrat. However, this wasn't enough to turn the state or even to make it a close battle, as the Republicans were able to win it at the end by a margin of 8.2%. And just a small remark before we continue, once again the polling industry proved its big failure in the state of Iowa, as they were predicting a very close battle between President Trump and Joe Biden. However, it's President Trump who ended up winning the election by quite a big margin. So as usual, in analyzing the result of any state, we will proceed as we proceeded before. We will divide the counties of the state of Iowa in two groups: the group of small counties and the group of medium-sized and large county. As expected, it's the Republican who tend to do better in small counties, as there are more white rural voters, whereas the Democrats tend to do better in the big counties, as they are able to attract educated voters, and most importantly, or more precisely, the category of white educated voters. Now, before beginning to study the result in small and big counties, let's just take some data about the state of Iowa. So, as we see here, Iowa is a small state in the United States of America. It has only a population of 3.1 million U.S. citizens. The big majority of the population of the state is white. We have here 85% of white population, only 6% of Hispanic, and 4% of black population. We also have somehow low percentage of bachelor degree. Only 29.3% of the adult population of Iowa have a bachelor degree. This is less than the average of the United States, which is 33.1%. That being said, since we have a big majority of white population and a low average of bachelor degree compared to the rest of the US, you would expect the Republican to do good in the state, as they are the stronger among the category of white rural voters, white voters without a bachelor degree, and indeed this is what happened in the state of Iowa. So now beginning with the small counties of Iowa, so we have a total of 92 small counties, in Iowa, we see that it's the Republican who were able to improve big in these counties compared to the 2016 election. They were able to improve in 68 out of 92 small counties in Iowa, whereas the Democrats were able to improve in 24. And this is something that you would expect, as we said previously, the small counties contain in majority white rural voters, and these voters tend to be really conservative, and so they tend to vote for the Republican, and especially for President Trump, who was able to attract and to motivate this category of voters. So let's get into more details about the numbers of these small counties. So first, let's study the small counties in which we have less than 25% of bachelor degree among the adult population. So as you see here, there is a total of 74 small counties where we have less than 25% of bachelor degree, and this is quite a big number, and it shows you that the state of Iowa is a state where we don't have a very high average of bachelor degree. So out of the 74 small counties with less than 25% of bachelor degree, the Republicans were able to improve very big here. They were able to improve in 57 of such counties, whereas the Democrats were able to improve in only 17 of these counties. And here it's very important to note that most of these small counties with less than 25% of bachelor degree have a very big percentage of white population. Most of them have more than 85% of their population being formed from white voters. And so this shows once again that the Republicans were able to improve very importantly among the category of white rural voters, as this diagram shows you. So that being said, now let's move and study the small counties in which we have a higher percentage of bachelor degree. So here we're talking about small counties where we have more than 25% of bachelor degree among the population of the county. So we have a total of 14 of such counties. Here we see that the number of improvement is very close between the Republican and the Democrat, as the Republican were able to improve in 8 of such counties, whereas the Democrat were able to improve in 6. So we see that here the Democrat did fairly well, and that they were very close to the Republican. However, the Republican still had a small edge. But by comparing these two charts, we see that the Republican did really well among the category of white rural voters, whereas among the category of white educated voters, the results were very similar and very close to each other. So now let's move to our last chart concerning the small counties of Iowa. So here we see we will study the small counties in which the Republicans were able to improve by more than 5% compared to the previous election, to the 2016 election. We see here that there is 12 small counties in which the Republicans were able to improve by this margin. Out of these 12 small counties, we have 9 of them where there is less than 20% of bachelor degree among their population. We also have 3 small counties in which the Republican improved by more than 5%, where we have a percentage of bachelor degree that is between 20 and 25. And what's very important and very striking is that in none of the small counties where the Republican improved big, there is more than 25% of bachelor degree. So if we take into consideration and if we know that in all these counties, in all the 12 small counties where the Republican improved big, the population in these counties is formed from more than 85% of white population, we can easily say that the Republican improved most importantly among the category of white rural voters, whereas they didn't improve a lot, or even they lost among the category of white educated voters, as they weren't able to improve by more than 5% in any of the counties that have more than 25% of bachelor degree. So that being said, what we can conclude about the small counties of Iowa is that the Republicans did really well because of their surge among the category of white rural voters, and this is thanks to President Trump far-right politics, as these category of voters tend to be far-right voters. So just let me give you 2 examples concerning the small counties of Iowa. So the first county that you will study together where the Republicans were able to improve big is the county of Howard. So let's see some data about this county. So as you see here, Howard County is a small county that has less than 10,000 population. The big majority of its population are white. We have more than 97% of white voters here. And you see here that the percentage of bachelor degree in this county is very low. It's less than 16%, so it's a very low average of bachelor degree. And you would expect here the Republican to do really well, as they tend to do very good among the category of white rural voters. And this is the case. We can see clearly that the Republicans were able to improve by 6.8% over the Democrat compared to the last election. They were able to win the county by 63.1% to 35.8%. Now we will see a small county where the Democrats were able to improve, and you will see that this improvement was mainly due to their surge among the category of white educated voters. So now let's move to the study of big counties. So as you see here in this chart, there is a total of 5 big counties in the state of Iowa, and it's the Democrats, who were able to improve in all these big counties compared to 2016, whereas the Republicans weren't able to improve in any of them. And the reason is that in big counties you tend to have a higher percentage of bachelor degree, and so people who have a bachelor degree tend to be more liberal, and so they tend to vote for the Democrat more than they do for Republican. This is first. Second, it's very important to note that Iowa is a state that has a very big majority of white population, and we saw in the previous states that the Democrats were able to improve very big and to surge very big among the category of white educated voters, and so this explains why the Democrats were able to do very good in the big counties of Iowa. I will give one example about this county. So now I will give you an example that shows you how good the Democrats were able to do in these big counties. So the county that I've chosen is the county of Johnson. Let's see some data about this county. So Johnson County is a very big county in Iowa. It has a population of around 151,000 U.S. citizens. As you see here, it has a big majority of white voters and of white population. More than 78% of the population are white. We have a little bit of black, Asian, and Hispanic voters. As for the percentage of bachelor degree, we see here that it has a very big percentage of bachelor degree, a very high percentage. It has around 55% of its added population which have a bachelor degree, and this is a very big and a very high percentage compared to the US, and especially to the average of Iowa. It's around double the rate of Iowa. So you would expect the Democrat to do very good here, as they were able to surge very big in the category of white educated voters. And indeed, this is what happened. We see here that the Democrats were able to gain 5.6% in the total votes compared to 2016, and this enabled them to improve by 5.6% over the Republican compared to the last election. So that being said, our study of the state of Iowa comes to an end. What I want you to know is that the Republican seems to be very strong here. This battleground state is not a battleground state anymore. It's the Republican who seems to have a big advantage here. The reason, of course, is their surge among the category of white rural voters, and this surge is caused by the far-right politics of President Trump. And I do think that from now on, the Democrats will not be able to win any elections here unless they find a way to motivate or to demotivate the category of white rural voters. However, it doesn't seem to be the case. So for the 2022 election and for the 2024 election, I expect the Republican to win by a big margin here, and even by a bigger margin than the 2020 election. And so I expect them to win by a double-digit margin. So thank you for listening to this video, and I will see you soon in an upcoming video of Deep in Politics. Thank you.